Listen, recently playing all these video games, the whole nine, watching a bunch of gameplay, games such as, like Sifu for example. But it got me thinking, like, what if Marvel Games hired other game developers? Hypothetically speaking, hire other game developers other than Insomniac Games to do other games based on other characters. It don't have to be a connected universe or nothing like that. It can be its own separate thing, like Spider-Man or Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're going to ask the question, what if? Yeah, I know, a little unoriginal, done before, but that ain't what I'm here to talk about. Me personally, I'm just thinking like this. What if certain game developers done certain games for certain Marvel characters? I know DC, but DC already got their stuff in the bag. They're chilling with the Suicide Squad, NetherRealm Studios, if they ever do Injustice 3, the whole nine. I'm not here to talk about that, but just thinking about, like, what if Marvel contact other developers like sloclapgames, the developers from Sifu and Absolver. Listen, y'all already know where I'm about to go with this. What if the developers of Sifu, Sifu and Absolver, you saw the combat is with this game? You saw how dope that shit really is, and how good it really is, and the whole nine, the mechanics and all that. But I'm just saying, like, what if Sifu, the developer of Sifu, made a Daredevil game? Y'all knew this was coming, and I said earlier, but let me break it down, let me explain. It can be semi-open world, kind of like Sifu, because Daredevil is only in one part of New York City. He is in Hell's Kitchen, New York City. It's in Marvel Spider-Man. Y'all can go in Hell's Kitchen. So y'all know how small the map really is, and is only really good for one particular character, which is Daredevil. How the fighting and all that will go. Daredevil is basically a blind ninja. So him, like, the movement, he can, like, run around, do, like, certain flips and shit like that, jumping off, bouncing off walls to walls, and the whole nine. He can do all that. Fighting, how that gonna go? Listen, he's well known for he's well known for giving people these hands. But also in the comics, and even a little bit of the MCU, Daredevil did have billy club sticks. These two sticks he will sometimes pull out and use against his enemies and whatnot, so he can probably, like, switch between, like, one or more fighting styles. He can probably, like, pick up weapons, chuck it at people, pick it up weapons, use those, or use his hands, billy clubs, as a sort of way to, like, switch up fighting styles. Like, he can switch up fighting styles on the fly, like something like the Yakuza games, if y'all play those. And for the villains he might fight, that's a no-fucking-brainer. That's a no-brainer. He can just, fight Wilson Fisk. Like, he can fight other villains as well, like smaller villains of his that lead up to Wilson Fisk. Kind of like a level-based type of thing, But yeah, I think Daredevil will be a good character. If Marvel Games ever even hires Sloclap, will be a good game. Will be a good developer for a Daredevil-like game. I know Insomniac Games will be the number one pick. But listen, Insomniac Games is a goated video game developer under PlayStation. We ain't trying to have Sony overwork Insomniac Games like how Mappa overworked their employees. So pretty much by the end of this, I nominate pretty much sloclapgames to do a Daredevil game. Next character is the Punisher. Now, when I first thought about this, I thought Rockstar Games. It seemed like the obvious choice for the character the Punisher, considering the fact that Rockstar Games is perfect for him. But I thought to myself, what if we don't use the Punisher? Like, not the Punisher. What if we don't use Rockstar Games? Instead, who I nominate to direct or like develop the next Punisher game, if Marvel Games get in contact with them, it would be Naughty Dog Studios. Now, look, I understand where y'all coming from. When I hear Naughty Dog, I know The Last was Part 2. Not my favorite. Be honest with you, story was I really didn't rock with it. But you cannot admit though, the gameplay was the best part about that game. Games and graphics. But with the gameplay of, The Last of Us 2 mixed with the Punisher, it actually does bring more out of that greedy, like, violence and storytelling that from, like, the Punisher, like, that's from the Punisher comics, primarily the Punisher Max comics in the MCU, because Punisher is canon now. But, yeah, that's really it about the Punisher, villains with gunplay and combat style like The Last of Us Part 2, with the villains that he can face like Jigsaw, Bushwhacker, the whole nine, interact with minor Marvel characters, not big superhero names, or he can fight like the whole, Frankenstein version of himself from the comics. Like some villain got the bright idea to contact someone else, use Frank Castle's DNA and but make a whole Frankenstein like Punisher from the comics, that whole thing. So, yeah, so I'm a Listen, I was gonna talk about like the whole X-Men and who need to make a game for them, but it's a whole lot to explain regarding the X-Men because so many factors that play into the X-Men. And right now I'm just tired of shit, so I'm ending this video. I'm about to take a nap. Take care, y'all.